Welcome to my channel. Hello, Manan Apo. Part 2, ti pa nag-prune and fertilize tayo hydrangeas dito yung garden ko. Zone 5 here. It's part 2 of pruning and fertilizing of hydrangeas around my garden. Meet my two Bobo hydrangeas. These plants are very new. I just put them in the ground last year, in spring. And this is how they looked like on their first blooms. Mayat man sabong na nagdadakkel. So I'm just gonna be deadheading them because they're still young and small. They don't really need much pruning yet. I'll wait until they're more established. So for now, I'll just be deadheading and fertilizing them. Bobo hydrangeas grow to about 2.5 to 3 feet tall and 3 to 4 feet wide. Flowers are white that age to pink, but I didn't notice it turn pink yet. And they're supposed to reliably bloom every year, so we'll see. Just moving away the mulch before fertilizing. For this one, I'll be using the same fertilizer I used in part 1. It's Miracle Grow all-purpose fertilizer, and I'm using 1 scoop for a gallon of water on each plant. And you're supposed to dilute it in the water, but I'll try the sprinkling method. This is a 2-gallon watering can, and then I'll be watering them again later. Now just replacing the mulch. These are little lime hydrangeas I planted last spring, hoping for it to become a privacy hedge because it grows up to 3 to 5 feet tall and wide. It blooms in the summer, and I planted it in full sun, and it did really well. So I'm only deadheading these because they're only a 1-year-old plant. For these little lime hydrangeas, I'll be using a rose fertilizer because roses are flowering shrubs just like hydrangeas. I just follow the directions it says on the package. Apply it around the drip line and then lightly scratch it in the soil. Water it, and then we're done for this plant. These are their last season's blooms. Next one to take care of are the summer crush hydrangeas. I have 3 of them. They grow to about 1.5 to 3 feet tall and wide. I actually planted them on the east side of the house before, but they were not happy. They were drooping and burning in the heat of the sun, so I moved them back here to the north side, and they love it. This is the shady part of the house, and they perform better here. I will just be deadheading them for now and fertilize them and then leave them for another week or so until I see the actual growth on the sticks and from the ground, so I can tell the dead sticks from the good ones. These hydrangea blooms both on old and new wood. I'm just moving away some of the leaves, and there's some new growth starting to emerge at this time. I'll be using a granular balanced slow release fertilizer on this one, same one I used last spring. It's a 10-10-10 granular fertilizer. I'm not really putting a lot, just a couple or 3 pinches of the fertilizer. Sprinkle it around the drip line and then water it. I also added some compost for additional nutrient. I'm just scratching it with a fertilizer and then putting the mulch back in. On this bed, I have 3 Summer Crush Hydrangea and Twist and Shout on the far right. And water well. So I'm back after a couple weeks and I can see this new growth are sprouting from the ground. So all these dead sticks are coming out, or I'll be pruning to the next live bud. Summer Crush blooms on both old and new wood, so it doesn't matter if the growth from last year died, I will still get blooms this year from the new growth. Ket ikaten tayo amin dagitoy na tayo nga branches tapno mayat ti pa nagtubo daytoy baro nga saringit. Timula. For this twist and shout, I see some buds on the old sticks. So I'll be pruning it just above that healthy growth. And I'll be doing the same thing around the plant, just cutting above a healthy bud. And just doing some cleanup right now. And this is how this flower bed looks like when it's in bloom. Next, let's do the strawberry Sundae panicle hydrangea. Remove all the old and dead flowers. Deadheading ti kunada ti panagikat iti old flowers. I'm also adding some compost. For this hydrangea, I'll be using Hollytone. It's a natural and organic fertilizer for acid-loving plants like hydrangeas. Follow the directions on the bag on how to apply. I use different fertilizers for each of these hydrangeas and see if there's any difference with their blooms and growth. Water it in. I did the pruning later on during the day. I'll be removing those thin branches that cannot support a heavy flower and any crossing branches or dead sticks. Then I'll reduce the size of the whole plant as well, making sure to make the cut just above a healthy node. And that is done. This was last summer's blooms. Now let's check on this mophead hydrangea, which blooms on the last year's growth. I just removed the inside covering. We never really had any flowers from this mophead hydrangea, maybe just one, because we've been pruning it down to the ground in the fall. But now it's been covered all winter without pruning. But now that I uncover it, the branches or the stems from last year still dried out and died. I'm seeing a couple of old stems from last year's growth with new buds or shoots forming, but that's about it. The rest are new growth coming from the ground, meaning these are new wood and will set their buds for next year's blooms. This new growth from the ground will not flower this season. So I'm going to start taking out all these dead branches. I will wait and see how many flowers I get from these old wood shoots. And if I don't get a lot, I'll just take out the whole plant. I don't want a hydrangea that does not make it through the winter, even with all the protection. And I'll be posting an update on how all these hydrangeas will do this summer. Thank you for watching. God bless and happy gardening. Salamat naman!